we will get started and
Yep.
kick off. And thank you, ladies, for joining us tonight for our Skill Up webinar on a live Q&A with Sara Berry from Marketing Sense. It's not very often that we get to pick somebody's brain in this situation, an expert in marketing. So we're very lucky to have you with us tonight, Sara. So thank you so much. And having it in this format is fantastic. So we have a few questions that have come through, which is wonderful, which we're going to start with. And then, as Sara just said, if any questions pop into your mind, pop them in the chat. And then, or if you're not able to, if you can't pop them in the chat, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question. But we will get started with our first question tonight, which was from Tracy, which is a process, or asking, is there a process that you can follow? So Sara, is there a process, a marketing process?
Yes, there is, and that was the best question. So thank you very much for asking that, even though you'd forgotten that you'd actually asked it, Tracy. So I'm going to now just quickly share the screen, and hopefully everybody can see that now. Hold on. Okay, so my business is Marketing Sense. I have about 3 decades of experience in marketing. You may have picked, my accent gives me away. I don't believe I still have one, but I'm from London, and I started in advertising. And a lot about advertising, and the area that I worked in specifically was in planning. So I've been a strategic planner for a long, long time. Hence why I can sort of do these on the spot Q&As, because there's pretty much nothing I haven't seen or done when it comes to industries and marketing. So what I'm going to take you through here, Tracy. So Tracy asked if there's a process that you can follow. I should also add, this is my website. I have about 8 years worth of small to medium sized or micro and startup blogs and content, which is focused entirely on questions that I get asked every day when working with micro and small businesses. So please feel free to jump on over and have a look at this yourself. I've actually got like a little search bar that you can use as well. So this particular one you can see here is called Supercharge Your Marketing. So if you go to the search bar and put in Supercharge, you will find this straight away, and you can use this. This is a free resource. So basically the fundamentals of marketing is that it's a business process. It's not something that you want to slap on at the end. It's something that you need to do that's integrated within your business. So the reason that we do this is the whole purpose is to generate more awareness, demand, and sales for your business. So we're going to go through this very quickly, step by step. I'll go through I think there's 6 points in here. And then if anyone's got any questions, then perhaps we could sort of address those if you put them in the chat as we're going. So the first really, really critical thing with anything that you're doing with your business growth, your strategy, your marketing, your planning for sustainable growth is you need to determine what your problem is that you're trying to solve. And don't overthink this, okay? So really what we're looking for here is one statement that explains the business issue and the behavior you want to affect. Okay, so the most important thing with any kind of marketing that you're doing, especially now when we've got digital, which is so measurable, is we want to be able to measure. Because what the purpose of this is to get to the end of this whole process that I'm going to take you through and be able to assess the success. And that's the fundamental part. You're not going to feel comfortable investing any of your money back into the business for growth unless you know that it's worked. So that's really important. So an example of that would be, I want to get, I usually work on quarters. I find quarters work really well. So we're about to go into quarter 2, October, November, December. So maybe start thinking about setting your goal, maybe at the end of this session, is if you get nothing out of this today, write down what your goal is for the second quarter. So that's October to December. So then we say, okay, what is it that I want to achieve? Now, lots of you have got different sorts of business. We've got, you know, someone in safety. We've got someone that's got eco-friendly products. We've got somebody else that's just starting up, what was it, in hair care products, like really, really diverse. But each of you will have something that you really feel that you need to achieve with your business. As a startup, it may be different to if you're already a fairly developed company, but you will have a very measurable goal. So to give an example, for a startup type business, the hair care products, you might be saying, okay, what I actually want to do is I want to do some kind of value proposition design. Before I make labels and mass produce and go into looking into this into a big way, I want to determine whether or not there's a market for my product, for example. So some sort of goal for you for October might be actually more around collecting information and intelligence around launching, how much to invest, what there is in terms of the market opportunity. So you could probably say, okay, well, what I'd really like to be able to do is, perhaps in the case of yours, is that your end user might be salons. So therefore, you know, it could be, I wouldn't mind perhaps selling, you know, X type of product, depending, I don't know your product range, obviously, but I would like to look at selling, you know, this particular shampoo, one box maybe of 20 of these shampoos to 5 salons in a large geography within New South Wales, because you want to get a bit of feedback from everyone in New South Wales, or you might go to Australia, and you might think about saying at, you know, so much dollars. So then, and then it's by, obviously, because we're working on quarters, so then it's going by December 2020. So then the one statement for you would be, you know, I would like to sell 20, 40, 60 separate shampoos of 20 shampoos in each box to 3 hairdressing salons across Australia by December 2020. So that's an example using one of the particular cases of someone who's in here tonight. So then, in order to do that well, you kind of need to understand the environment and the landscape in which you're operating. So that's point 2, information needed. So this is where you really want to look and purvey the scenery. You want to understand your market in which you're going to be operating. So to use another example, I don't know if I know the other businesses well enough. I'm trying to quickly think on my feet here. In the case of using the, let me have a quick look. Maybe let's just use the hair one as an example. So in this instance, if your end user as your customer is going to be a salon, you would probably look at the types of products that they're stocking currently. So you maybe put together a bit of a sales list of some of the people that you'd like to get in touch with, and you might have a look at them and decide, well, who are they currently stocking? Why are they stocking those types of products? I think probably if you're looking at working with salons directly, you probably would look at some of the smaller ones, some of the ones that haven't got big negotiated deals with the Wellers and some of those kinds of things, and looking for opportunity in terms of how you might position your product with those smaller types of salons initially, and then understanding like what is their decision-making process and what motivates their purchase. You might find that in the current climate under COVID, for example, many hairdressers have struggled because obviously they had to be closed for a while, and there's a lot of people still uncomfortable about going to hairdressers because of the social distancing. So their current negotiations with some of their bigger suppliers may not be suiting them. So actually this could be a really good opportunity for you right now to kind of move in, offer smaller amounts of volumes and lesser prices. So information needed really helps you to understand how you're going to look and talk to your client or prospect moving forward. And then for reaching your target audience. So talking about salons, where are they? I've done a lot of work in this space, so I know that they're big on their magazines, online magazines. I've actually been done some PR myself in a couple of hair salon magazines, which I can't remember at the moment, unfortunately. Spa and Beauty, I think, was one, and there was another one. And I got that media coverage for free really easily. So that's something that you can think about. Like, where are these guys? What are they reading? And how am I going to reach out to them? Of course, we've got the obvious things like Facebook, Instagram, possibly LinkedIn. And also, if you're doing that, how are you going to drive them back to a website? So there are just some ideas around how you might reach them in terms of sort of raising your brand awareness and positioning your product in front of them to start some conversations. The next piece of this is a fairly critical one these days in a very crowded marketplace, and that is the expression of the idea. So what we're trying to do here is kind of creatively bring your product or service to life in the marketplace. How are you going to be seen? What is the message that you're giving your prospects that's really going to resonate with them? And if you do your homework up at points 2, information needed, and 3, understanding where your target audience is, this point number 4, the expression of the idea, becomes much, much easier because you know these clients. You get what makes them tick. It's kind of like when they put their head on the pillow at night. You may have heard this one before. What are they thinking about? What keeps them up at night? So you really want to get inside their head. And this is one of the things that I learned really, really early on in my career. Get inside their head, become them. I've got a whiteboard to my right here. You know, if you've got a small whiteboard, I've actually got a little one here that I can show you. My little friend, get yourself a whiteboard and start drawing up this person. Give them a name. Think about what they look like, where they hang out, what coffee they drink, what magazines they read, are they on Instagram? Get inside their head and really understand what makes them tick. Then from there, now this is the part where everybody always jumps in first, and this is where it all goes really, really wrong from the beginning. If you jump straight in here and don't do all these other bits, and you go straight to your action plan, oh, I'm going to be on Facebook, I'm going to be on Instagram, doing all the things, and I'm busy, you know, this is what I generally deal with pretty much every day, is people that have gone straight to the action plan, really not considered a goal, really not thought about, you know, where they're going to reach their target market, and really then not considered how they're going to get the best bang for their buck. And then finally, why did we set the metrics in the first place up here under problem to be solved? Is because at the end of all this, we're going to be able to go, okay, it's December, or let's say, you know, give yourself a break over Christmas. It's January the 3rd. You've come back to work. Those goals that you set, I was using the salon example. Did I achieve that? Yes or no? Actually, I went bloody gangbusters, and I sold more than I possibly imagined I could have. And actually, the most of them came from here, here, and here. I'm sticking more money in that for the first quarter, January, February, March 2021. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of the process that you need to be following. And so behind all of this, you're then able to really build your marketing capabilities. So this process here is something that I use constantly with some clients I've had for anywhere around 3 to 4 years. And we do go through this constantly. Like, it's not something you do once and then dump. You're just always using and reiterating this process until you perfect it. Bringing on new product, bang, back to the beginning again. Extending your services, bang, back to the beginning again. So remembering this is a process. So it helps you to build your marketing capability. So obviously the part of this is that, you know, it becomes part of your DNA, which it needs to be as a small business owner. And also then provides insights, and this is the critical part. It provides insights into really how you can provide value in innovative and differentiated ways. If you look at the competitors, if you look at your offering, if you purvey the scenery and the situation, you might be able to find a little something there that nobody else has been doing. And you can't do that if you don't do all the work up here. And the other thing, obviously, is that it enables you to actually have a really sharp focus. Many businesses that I work with, you know, it's the shiny things. There's always a new this and a new that, and shall I do this and shall I do that? And the noise is overwhelming. And I know, because I'm a business owner, I started my business 8 years ago, and I was exactly the same. When I started, I was like, oh, looking at this and looking at that and looking at the other, and I was so distracted. If somebody had said to me, set a quarterly goal, I would have been really clear on what it was that I needed to do. So what it does is it really helps you to develop that focus, which is really, really, really important. Okay, so I can see that the chat box is really busy. Rochelle, could you have a look in there for me and sort of shoot at some of the questions to me? You're on mute.
Okay, so there's a few questions around LinkedIn. I don't know if we can group them together. But one of them is, so what's the best way? So from Connie, what's the best way to market for B2B? Is LinkedIn or is B2B? Is LinkedIn the new Facebook?
Okay, so I've actually been on LinkedIn, I don't know, probably since I started my business. I feel like I have been, certainly for the last 6 years. So for me, it's not new, I guess. I love the platform. It's my favorite, but obviously I'm a professional services business. I don't know how many connections I've got now, over 500, 600, I've no idea. But I'm connected with people in government departments, you know, small businesses, you name it. I've got thought leaders that I've attended their seminars. I pretty much meet with someone and link in. And so it's really a behavior that you need to get into. And if you haven't already got a LinkedIn profile, put it on your list to do. If you're really looking at in that B2C, but also B2C space as well. Now, going back to what I was saying with this plan, I'm not going to prioritize it for you, because I think what you've got to determine is if your goal is this, is it important that you do that right now? Is it important to create a LinkedIn profile tomorrow? Should it be on top of the list? So until you've run through this kind of scenario, really, you know, I could say to you, oh yeah, we'll go off and do your LinkedIns, but is it going to be valuable to you in terms of reaching your goals come December 2020? I don't know. So that's the thing you've got to go back to again. But yes, it is a very, very powerful platform. Unfortunately, or fortunately, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. It was purchased last year by Microsoft, Bill Gates. The plan is to make it, you know, your 21st century Rolodex, for those of you that remember what one of those is. You know, it's where all your business cards sat. And it really is, for me, like, it is amazing. It has so much power in that respect. The downside of it, having been someone that's been on there for, I think it must be 6-7 years, is that it is becoming like all the other platforms where it's pay to play. So that's where I'm thinking, you know, we're seeing the good times probably coming to an end a little bit, and it's going to get to that point where it's going to be a pay to play platform.
That kind of leads into Joanne's question, actually, is how do we get traction on LinkedIn with all the noise on there now?
I mean, ultimately, that comes back to, I'm going to sound really tedious and boring here, but it does come back to your problem to be solved. So what I would suggest, so who asked that question?
That was Joanne.
Joanne. So what's Joanne's business again?
Recruitment.
Okay, so obviously in your case, Joanne, yes, probably you know, maybe put it to the top of the list. In terms of recruitment, I would actually be starting with, okay, if the problem to be solved is, you know, really what you need, and I know you mentioned you're sort of working in a niche area. I think fundamentally it's actually, what my suggestion would be, get an old Excel spreadsheet out, do a bit of research beforehand, and kind of, this is where we're in this information needed box now, is, I'm pointing at the screen, use my mouse, is that you really kind of need to be thinking, who are the people that I would like to engage with? Is there anybody in my last job that I think might be interested? Any connections that I can kind of link in with? So be focused and targeted around those people that you initially want to link in with, and make your prospecting relevant to them. So if we go back to, you know, what are the problems that you solve? Where are your customers? What's their decision-making process? And some of those sorts of things, you're actually then going to be able to build out a communications plan around your prospecting. And it may well just start with connecting on LinkedIn. And then actually one of the things that works really well is a little trick, is if you use on your phone, I've plugged my phone in, but if you use on your phone, so I have all of my apps on here, and if you don't, I would suggest you do the same, because when you're standing in a long queue, you can be looking at things and linking in, right? Never waste a minute. On your LinkedIn on your phone, when you go to messages, you could actually leave people a voice message. And talking about cutting through, that's a really good way of kind of doing something that's a little bit quirky. But you need to work out what it is that you're going to say. And that all comes back to the information needed section. Does that make sense?
Can you re-record it?
Yes, because you don't have to press send.
Okay.
Yeah. Any more questions?
Yeah.
Can I add questions to that?
Yeah, sure, go.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just wrote them in the chat, but I'm going to say them anyway now.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of more talking like, you know, when you're posting articles and, you know, posting, getting stuff to be seen, getting stuff to show up in people's feed, it seems to be a challenge right now. And the same people seem to be getting all the traction, and I'm kind of wondering how they're doing this.
Okay, so there's a few things. I actually haven't seen it so much lately, but probably going, well, I'm thinking pre-COVID, maybe it was more last year, but there was a lot of what you call pods. And that's where there's actually LinkedIn communities, and they meet. So they're like networking communities, but the sole goal of them is to network together on LinkedIn. I was actually in a pod about 2 years ago, and I really didn't find it that valuable. Basically what it is you've got maybe 15, 20 people that sit in your pod, and every time someone comments, everyone bundles on and comments on it, which boosts the engagement. That's one thing, but I haven't seen that happening so much. And what you've got to remember, because now this is going to be a pay-to-play platform, I would imagine that that's eventually going to be outlawed as bad behavior because it's not real engagement. I could be wrong, but algorithm-wise, I'm not seeing so much of that, which would make me think it's probably not being encouraged. Because obviously there are linkfluencers, like there are on any platform. There are people that are motivated to promote using LinkedIn, and they would have been given strategies to encourage. And the fact that I'm not seeing that so much now. So I guess my point is that there are LinkedIn communities that meet. Obviously, they haven't been meeting recently, but certainly over the last couple of years, I've seen on Facebook and various places, on LinkedIn as well, and they'll have group photographs and they say, met for our LinkedIn networking session. So you could jump into one of those. Not only do you have the wonderful value of in-person networking, which is someone that's been around the block and back, can't bloody beat it. Horrible, who likes it? But you know, in-person networking is old school, is still good, because it's all about relationships, isn't it? The other thing I find, video. You know, all of the algorithms love video. So, you know, you can now do native video in LinkedIn. So maybe that's something that you might want to consider. And actually there was a question around video, so I'll probably cover off a little bit more of that in detail when we get round to whose question was that?
It's Connie's question, and also Miriam's got a question around video.
Yeah, so we can come to that. The other thing is, what I find is, again, like all of the platforms, they want to keep you on the platform, right? So don't do too many outbound links, which is dropping a link in that's going to send them out to your website. And no, it's like, oh, but I just want them to go to my website. But that penalizes you. However, we do have the opportunity to actually create a LinkedIn article, so you can publish on the platform. And that's one of the things that I've been doing from the very, very beginning. So if you link in with me, you will see that I've got lots and lots of articles that are native to the LinkedIn platform, and they tend to get a little bit more traction because it's in the platform, if that makes sense.
Sara, are you posting more on your personal LinkedIn page or on your business?
Sorry, yes, 100%. And I always have. Sometimes I have recently started to share content from my page to my profile, but everything for me is a one-on-one relationship. I'm not a big brand. So I think my recommendation would be do both. Because you still want to build your followers. So I still post both, lots of content, and you will see that. I do as I say. The proof's in the pudding with me. I do post on both, but my traction 100% is all on me.
Yeah, rather than the pages. So on the sorry, Joanna, did you have any other questions?
No, that's good, thank you.
I didn't want to cut you off there.
That's all right.
Okay, so on the videos, Sara, so presenting videos aren't for Miriam, but it seems to be the marketing of today. What's the next best thing?
Okay, so presenting videos are not for me. Mariam, we don't know your business, do we? Sorry if we've already gone over this. Is Mariam on? Can you tell us your business?
No, she's not.
Ah, she was on. She's gone. I must have bored her. Okay, so for when she does it on catch up, one of the things that I had, obviously I have a coach. Even though I'm a coach, I have a coach. And one of my coaches said to me very early on in my business is, as a small business owner, you have to be able to sell, right? So I hate selling, and I'm getting better at it, but I really don't like it. It makes me feel a bit sick. I have actually developed an entire process to improve my sales, which obviously as a good marketer I should do. So my point on this is get comfortable with doing stuff that you don't really want to do. Build your capability, push yourself. So my answer is, sure, videos aren't for me either. Actually, Rochelle and I were laughing in the 10 minutes before I came on live with you guys, saying, you know, I don't really like video either. And one of the reasons I do sessions like this is because it's a really good way of doing video without kind of, you know, either speaking to no audience, and that interaction is really good, or just, you know, sort of like, oh, here I am, you know, looking at the iPhone, which some people just really struggle with. I do, I'll be honest. But
I hate the effort of having to do your hair and makeup.
Ah, yes, that's it, isn't it, really? Let's be honest.
An hour to do a 5-minute video.
Yeah, because I'm the same. I mean, like, mostly my advisory sessions or my coaching I do Wednesday, Thursdays and Fridays. And if I'm going to do a video on a Monday or Friday, forget it. I'm still in my pajamas, you know.
All right. So keeping with the same kind of theme in terms of videos and LinkedIn. So a question from Connie: is blogging or vlogging on LinkedIn more effective?
I think I kind of already answered that one. A bit of both. I mean, look, the wonderful thing about LinkedIn and the wonderful thing about all of these things that we're using these days is analytics. It's amazing, actually. One of the things I really do in my coaching sessions is to bring people out of their comfort zone, and I make them share the screen and say, show me your Google Analytics. And they're, oh, you know, the groans. So analytics on Instagram, Facebook, they're all there. Just try and get a little bit comfortable with having a look at them, because again, you know, referring back to Supercharge Your Marketing and that, you know, process, it's different for everybody. You know, what works for one doesn't necessarily work for somebody else. So, you know, I think probably video, again, like I said to you, video, the algorithms love video. So I think really the answer is sure, do video. I've actually released a series. I'm trying to think when it was. I think it was last year. And I did, trying to think what it was, 6 years or six days of videos. And I actually then loaded them up to LinkedIn. So they were pre-recorded, and they had subtitles on them, and there were 6 or 7 topics, I can't remember them now, that people asked me on a regular basis. And so I forced myself to do that. So maybe think about doing something like that.
Yeah. And is vlogs better on other social media platforms, or is it
video? 100%. Yeah.
Okay, Connie, got to get these videos going. Connie, did you have any other questions in regards to that? If you're able to answer a Zoom video or no video. Yep, sorry. you have to get out the video. All right. So a question from Vicky. What do you believe is the most effective form of marketing for a small business?
Oh, okay, so really that does go back to the Supercharge process again, because every business is different. So I can give you some basic things that you may want to do. I do actually have a blog on my website, which is some free marketing things. So maybe go onto my website and have a look at, I can't remember what it was now, 10 best free marketing tips. It was one I did, I think, earlier in the year. So that gives you some real no-brainers, you know, some of the free websites that you can get, Instagram, Facebook, some of those basic things. But ultimately, it does very much come back to your message, your offer, your customer, your price of your point of difference, and really where your customers hanging out, and all of those sorts of things are what make your specific marketing plan, if that makes sense.
Okay. All right, wonderful. All right, so a question from Ree. What are the best marketing strategies for a new e-commerce business? Does it depend on your marketing / demographic?
Yeah, 100%. Well, that's exactly what we're just saying. It does 100% depend. And I know that sounds really tedious, but hopefully I've given you that tool to work through so that you're not on your own to do this now. I think for you, like I was saying before, the best place to start is with your goal. Set a sales goal, especially with e-commerce. Again, it's one of those things that's really easy to get stuck on. Oh, I'll do the Instagram and I'll do the Facebook and and all of those sorts of things. Feels productive, it's good busy work, but actually, is it going to necessarily bring the sales in that you need? So start by setting that goal and try those platforms and see whether or not it actually shifts the dial for you. And if it's not, then you need to kind of go, well, all right, what else do I need to be doing? So one of the other things that I would say is with e-commerce, one of the most important things we talk about with e-commerce is your CRO. So that's your conversion rate optimization. And that effectively is the ability of your website to convert traffic into sales. So about 5 minutes ago, I was banging on about your analytics. If you've got a WordPress website, you should have a look and see your traffic. Is your traffic converting? If not, why not? Are you getting traffic? If you're not getting traffic, what can you do? So I've got a client, got a few e-commerce clients, but one client in particular who sold candles. And one of the things, he was really struggling to get traction on Instagram, on Facebook, but really struggling to get traction. When I actually did an SEO search, and I think it was men's gifts, because these candles are for men. When I actually looked, the first thing that was coming up was all of these gift lists and platforms. And one of them was a magazine. And so I said to him, well, why don't you see if you can get your candle listed in those magazines that are coming up first when people search, gifts for men? Sure enough, for Father's Day this year, he did. And that made a big difference. So you've got to really look at, how am I sending traffic? That's the first thing. And then, am I converting that traffic? So don't start with creating the traffic if your site is not going to convert. And you can actually see that through your analytics. But that's simple things like, having a easy cart checkout process, being clear about your postage and shipping, trying to think other things, but really just looking at the store and the user journey.
Wonderful, thank you. Ree, did you have any other follow-up questions from that one? She said that she'll have to be, excellent.
Ree, one of the things that's just popped into my head is a no-brainer, and I haven't talked about at all, which is very remiss of me. Newsletters. So one of the things that you could do is look at growing your email list. And I would actually say this to everyone who's in the Zoom room tonight. Think about, because that is one thing that you own. LinkedIn owned by someone else, Zuckerberg's Instagram and Facebook. You are the product on those platforms, right? But your email list is yours. They're your clients. No amount of paid to play is going to affect you. So MailChimp was, the recommended. Another one that you can look at now that is free or relatively inexpensive is MailerLite. I actually use ActiveCampaign because it's got some really clever automations. I'm trying to think if there's any others. There's a whole ton of them out there. I mean, I guess you guys are probably already using them to some degree. But if you've got a pop-up that comes up on your site that encourages people, so say, for example, with your store, if you can do a 10% discount by leaving an email address, then you're giving them the discount and you're growing the list so that you can remarket to them in the future by doing ongoing newsletters, all of which are free.
Yep, definitely. Wonderful. All right, so we've got a couple of other questions from Smriti. What are your thoughts on influencer marketing? Does the Australian market respond to this type of marketing?
Isn't that really interesting that you mentioned Australian market? I have this conversation with myself most of the time. I do actually find it really interesting, culturally differences. I think, Australians generally do tend to be more reserved. I think like a lot of women are responding well, like in communities like this and in groups. But I think in some respects, the question was again, sorry, remind me.
Influencer marketing. Does the Australian market respond to this type of marketing?
What I believe is valuable in that influencer space, probably if you're talking micro, is what you're looking for is to have someone to help you build your community. And when I say community, I mean community of prospects, essentially. Like we talk about things in a airy fairy kind of way, but when you talk about community, you know, these people are you're building your community on Instagram and Facebook and all of these places in order to ultimately sell something, right? So I think if you're looking at a micro influencer, possibly a good strategy is to maybe, yes, you know, look at that side of things, but I would suggest is what you're wanting to do is get that micro influencer to help you to grow your community. I think I've heard some criticism in respect of, you know, cold hard sales. I think you definitely can, but going back to that supercharge your marketing and that marketing planning process, it very much depends on the type of product that you've got. Some of the things that sell really well inside Instagram, for example, where you might hire a micro influencer, would be under that $100, where it's not a huge investment. So it does very much depend on what you're selling. If you've got a long lead to sell, do you need to warm up your clients and some of those sorts of things? So I mean, look, it is a long, you know, hot air coming from Sara again. It's a how long is a piece of string kind of question. But I think if I was turning back the clock on what I've done, I would say that really working with influencers, and I think micro influencers, and let's not even call them influencers, let's think about them as people that have big followings, I guess, is that you may be able to use them to help you build your own community. So really be working with people that have the same target audience as you, if that makes sense.
Yep. Alrighty. Another question from Smriti is in regards to growing that email list. She's seen a lot of data showing that people don't respond to email marketing campaigns. Is this different to your experience, again, specific to the Australian market?
Again, it depends on your demographic. It depends on whether or not you're giving them valuable content. It depends on the type of email platform that you're using. So I experienced a doubling in open rates because I do what I say, right? So I do an email. I experienced a doubling in open rates from switching from one provider to another. So sometimes with providers' deliverability, you know, often they go into junk mail. If you don't have a double opt-in, that is often what happens, and then nobody sees your emails. I don't know. My experience has been, for me, I can only speak from my own experience, in professional services, and if I'm looking at working with small to medium-sized clients that have bigger budgets, there is a fairly long lead to sale process. And so my newsletters and my blogging and what I do in email is a lot to do with building relationships. That said, I have sold, you know, 1 or 2 hour coaching to small and micro businesses from doing those newsletters. So I think it's get it right and it works.
Wonderful. Question from Connie, is doing an ebook worth creating to build an email list?
Yes. I mean, these days, if you you know, go over to my site, I have, and this is something that Rochelle was probably going to mention, but I have a brand statement. It's my lead magnet. And it's actually where I get most of my sign-ups and do my nurturing from. But also it's a really good free resource that I have that people then jump into my community and we talk about and that sort of thing. So it's where I provide value. So you're very welcome to go and have a look. The reason I do all of these things as well is to kind of go, look, here am I doing all the things. You know, I practice what I preach. So I think, you know, ebooks are a lot of work. Mine is I'm trying to think now, is it maybe a 5-page worksheet where it's got kind of like an example of what you need to do, the question, and then a page with you to fill out. It, you know, it was probably a couple of days work to put together, not a huge task. I think when we're talking ebooks, it's one of those things that kind of then sits in the two hard baskets. And I don't know what to write, what shall I say, how long shall I make it, you know, some of those sorts of things. So even if you just start with something really simple, there's someone that I work with that's got a social media calendar, and it's hugely popular. And she just really you know, sends a new one out for every month with all the special days and some of those sorts of things. And that's really been really useful for her in growing her list. So again, it really is about how providing value. If you put together an e-magnet and it doesn't have any value for the people that are coming to your site, then it's worthless.
Yeah, wonderful. Question from Tracy. You mentioned in-person networking. Do you have a recommendation for networking in the Illawarra?
Okay, so in the Illawarra, oh gosh, I actually belonged to a black tie networking event, which probably isn't going to be right for you because you're e-commerce, aren't you? There are a couple of hubs. If you Google, what's the word I'm looking for? Not hub, you know, those workspaces where you can hot desk. What are they called?
Oh, like shared workspaces?
Yes. If you Google shared workspaces Wollongong, and they don't come to mind at the moment. They're not sticking. There's one that's recently opened. Those are the sorts of places where you can go and network with people. Also, probably you could go on to Meetup, which is like a platform, and you can put in Wollongong and see what networking events are happening. I think at the moment there's not a lot. I know that there's people that I work with in Wollongong. I must admit, most of my clients are in Sydney, I'll be honest. But there are people, what was the point I was going to make? Would recommend BNI. But again, I think, and I've never done BNI, so I can't speak for that. But I think if you're e-commerce, which is what you are, you know, you need to be thinking about, and I think yours was the sustainable products. I would be
no it wasn't. No, but that's okay, keep going because it's interesting.
Tell me what you were, Tracy. What was
so yeah, I hadn't actually gotten around to that because of my muddled up thing about forgetting what this whole thing was about. No, I am a VA. So a virtual assistant.
That's right. You're the VA. Yeah. You're the VA. So then absolutely those hot desk places.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And also, so I belong to a community called the Freelance Jungle. I mean, anybody who's in there could possibly look at something like that. That is actually operated. Sorry, on my emails, bing. That is actually operated by someone from South Wollongong, can't think where exactly.
Okay, thank you.
If you jump on to some of my platforms and stuff, you know, I'm happy for you to send me a DM or whatever, and I'm happy to have a chat with you and talk about that in more detail.
Cool, thank you.
Have a look, I would say do a search on Facebook for some local business groups in like pages, like community business pages, and then you could also put a post in there asking for people if there's a local networking group as well.
Okay, thank you.
BNI is, yeah, quite expensive.
Yeah, there's lots of free, and again, I mean, all of us are all in the Small Business Women Australia group. That's how we're all together, right? So there's, you know, there's groups like that in Wollongong as well, Tracy. So just Google and see what you find. I know in Thurrool we've got a Thurrool working it's actually called that. It's called They're All Working. Yeah. So, you know, just have a
Okay.
look and see what there is in groups. Groups are great. I love Facebook groups.
Thank you.
Good plug for our Facebook group. We've got over 3,500 people in the Facebook group now. So if you do have any questions that you think of after this, please don't hesitate to pop your questions in the group. Yeah, there's a heap of people there that'll be able to offer some advice. Sara's in the group as well. And please don't, the conversation doesn't stop here. The group's there for you to ask questions. Maybe Tracy, there's other people in the Illawarra there that you can, that you can ask if anybody knows of anyone. But yeah, definitely please don't hesitate to ask your questions or ask for advice or anything in the Facebook group there. Okay, so questions. So can we please put the names of the most effective mailing tools in the chat box? Okay, yep. All right, so Reese got there, MailerLite. I haven't used that one. I'll have to check that one out. What was the other one? Active Campaign, wasn't it?
Yep. So I'm just doing that now while we've still got it open. Oh, MailerLite. Oh, what happened? Oh, it's gone.
Does anyone, so while Sara's doing that, has anyone got any other questions? I think we've gone through and answered them all.
And HubSpot does have a free platform as well. But I think they'll come at you fairly hard to buy something. MailChimp, MailerLite, HubSpot, Active Campaign. I think that's it for now. But yeah, do your research.
And what about what do you think about Google Ads? So do you find them effective if we've done all our homework properly? Do you find that they can be more effective than, say, Facebook ad?
That does vary. I've actually got someone that I work with that can look at what you're doing and do an assessment based. The thing is ultimately it all comes down to competition. So if you've got a highly competitive keyword, it may well be that it's more expensive for you on AdWords than it is on Facebook. But to give you an example, I'm trying to remember, I've just done one last week. I was working with a client that works in, it's sort of like in, I don't want to give too much away because it's my client's details, but it's in the leisure space for kids. And we were actually looking at Facebook because parents obviously influence the decision in this particular case. So, they're the demographic that's on there. And when we actually looked at her particular market, we reviewed, one of the things is nowadays on Facebook is since Cambridge Analytica, you can actually look at your competitors' Facebook pages, and there's a little thing on there that says something about visibility. You actually go to that little link and you can click on it and you can see when they're advertising. And so the other thing is in this particular instance, we looked at 3 or 4 of their competitors and big competitors, big name brands, and looked at their transparency and could see that none of them were advertising on Facebook. So one of the conclusions we kind of drew from that was, okay, have they decided that Facebook isn't really providing a return on investment for them? And so then we went over and looked at Google AdWords, and you can actually go in there and look at the competitiveness for keywords. We actually determined that this business, if they got their CRO right, which is converting traffic to sales, if that's all correct, that they could make twice as much as what their Google ad lead would cost them. So again, it all comes down to ROI. I've had clients that have come to me and gone, oh, I'm spending $2,000 a month on Google AdWords and I haven't had a single client. And I just kind of sit there going, what the hell are you doing? And I've also had clients say, oh yeah, I've had loads of leads. And then when you do the numbers on it, it's actually cost them more because their product is really low value. So if you're paying $50 for a lead and your product's $49, you're losing money, right? So it all comes back to the numbers ultimately. Does that answer your question?
Yep, it does. It definitely does. All right, so so we've got no more questions coming through. So thank you so much, Sara. Now you have graciously offered your brand statement to the group, haven't you? Did you want to pop that in the chat as well?
Yeah. Okay. So I can actually just quickly, sorry, do that now. So I could quickly just show you what it looks like as well, so you can see when you go to my site, and then I'll just take the link. Oh, sorry. Oh my goodness, I haven't eaten, and you can tell. Okay, so free brand statement worksheet. So I'm just taking the link from there. Forgive me. And I'll just quickly share my screen so that you can see the page. And so this is the Marketing Sense brand statement. It'll actually come up as a pop-up when you land on my site. So even if you just Google Marketing Sense, and then you just put your details, your name and your email in here, and then you can grab your brand statement from there. So there you have that, and I will pop that in the chat right away. Done.
All right, everyone, grab that. And if you do miss it, if you're not in a position at the moment to be able to click on that link before the end of the webinar, just send me an email, or just pop it in the Facebook group, and we can send that to you. Probably actually better to email myself, which is manager@smallbusinesswomenaustralia.com.au. That's manager@smallbusinesswomenaustralia.com.au, and then we'll be able to I'll be able to send that to you. But thank you so much, Sara, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and thanks for all your questions. And everyone's now cringing at the thought of videos. Yes, I'm gonna have to do one tomorrow as well. Get the hair and makeup done. That's the worst part. Yeah. That's it. I think we all hate seeing ourselves on the screen and hate seeing our voices, but as we've learned tonight from the expert, videos are the way to go. So thank you so much. And thanks everyone for joining us. And next week is our last Skill Up webinar, which is about I think it's our positive persuasion. So join us for next Wednesday night, which is our last one. So our second last one tonight. We're certainly ending with a bang. So thank you so much. And we'll have new initiatives in Small Business Women Australia after this. So thank you, and have a great rest of the night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.